Okay, I'm going to start with the compounding. How the compounding can be calculated. So, compounding is what that is interest on interest. So, an interest earned is compounded, and which is generating the interest on both the principal, which is the money invested at the very beginning, plus interest on that amount. So, we'll take an example here. In this example, the principal amount is $1,000. Rate of interest is 10%, and number of years is 3%. So this is the formula. So with the help of this formula, we will be able to calculate this amount. So this is known as the compounding. So what the formula here is that P is here for the principal, 1 plus I, and the cap that is to N. N is here the number of years, right? So in this case, if I want to calculate once again, and how I can calculate, you can see we have G2, so this amount, right? And into the 1 plus G3 and is to the G4 is the number of year, that N is an period. So in this case, we can calculate once again. If I delete it as equal to sign, and I can say that this is the principal amount, multiply bracket open 1 plus I is the 10%, right? The cap of this, so that will be shift plus 6 and 3, enter. So this is the amount that we will receive at the end of the third year. So we can calculate this manually as well. So let's see how many number of years that we have. So number of years, so the 1 2 and 3, so 3 number of years, and amount that we are going to invest, that is the $1,000. So here the $1,000 that we want to invest in the first year, when the 1,000 is invested, so how much return that was made. So what I mean to say that first we will calculate the initial investment. So initial investment was $1,000, and if we talk about here the interest, so interest here is 10%. So let's say the 10% is the rate of interest, and how much is the interest that we have calculated. So 1000 into, so 10%, this is the interest amount, and at the end of the period, right, end of the period or end of the year, right? So end of year, the amount will be is 1000 plus 100, so this is 1100. So 1100 that again that will be going to invest in the next year, right? So 10% that will remain the same, and here the total, like here we will calculate the 10% on 1100, that 110, and here the total will be, so this amount plus interest, so that will be 1210. This amount will be at the end of the second year, so that will become the opening balance for the next year, means the third year. So 10% amount, that is the rate of interest. And if we talk about the interest will be 1 to 1 on this, and make a total of this, so the total will be 1331. So exactly the same figure. So manually we have calculated, and there is one formula. With the help of the formula that we have calculated, that the compounding interest rate and compounding amount, right? So second formula we have here is the future value. What is the meaning of future value? This is totally based upon the time value of money. That future value means the future value of a single amount. For example, that a single amount that we are going to invest today for one period. So one period means just for 1 year. So in this case, $1,000 that we invest today, and 10% is the rate of interest. So the formula here is the future value after 1 year. So that will be 1100, which we have already calculated here. Look at this, after 1 year, so one period. So this is the one period. So that will be $1100. So that we have calculated. Now the third value that we are going to calculate, the future value of a single amount multiple period. So that is just exactly the same way that we have calculated as the compounding period, exactly the same way, and all the everything is same. Right, so we have some present value today, right? So in future how much money we will generate if the rate of interest is given 10% and 3 years. So same thing that we have calculated here. Now in case when we want to invest money every year, right? Then how we can calculate the future value? So let's say, take an example of this. We have, for example, the 5 years. So at the beginning of the period, let's say, uh, at the starting period, or you can say number of years first of all. So number of years we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So five's the number of year. Then opening balance, right? It means at the beginning that we have not invested anything, so zero. So zero amount here, we have not invested anything. Next, we will calculate how much deposit we have made. Let's say $1,000, and $1,000 that deposit we have made every year, right, for next 5 years. And after the deposit we have interest. So how much is the interest? So let's say interest rate is the 10%, for example. So here I can write here interest rate. So interest rate, let's say it's a 10%. Now here what I want to calculate the interest amount here on $1,000. So is equal to 1,000, and what is the interest on this? So into 10%, right? So this is the interest that we have. So deposit plus interest, that will be the closing balance. So closing balance will be uh, opening balance plus deposit plus interest. So all these three will be added together, and that will become the closing balance. Now this closing balance will become the opening balance next year. So is equal to 1100. And here, so if this is the case, that we will click on the dollar sign. Euro is dollar. Okay, so $1,100 that is going to be invested in the second year, and 1100 plus the $1,000. So these both that we will calculate here. So for this formula, what I'm going to do, I'm changing this formula to, right? So I'm changing to, here I'm just writing this opening balance we don't have, plus the $1,000 bracket close, and this is multiplied by 10%, enter. So opening balance plus a deposit, whatever the opening balance we have, we didn't deposit anything, right? There was no, actually there was no any lump sum amount that we paid at the beginning, but just we deposited $1,000. Now look at this. I'm just going to drag it, so it really shows that, yeah. So here in this case, this plus this. Okay, so why this is not happening? The reason being, the one thing, so if you're going to drag it, the value will be just error will come. So why this is coming? Because that we have set this formula here. Instead of writing here J26 23, which is the 10%, put a dollar sign here. The moment you put a dollar sign, then what happens? This, that will become an absolute value. So absolute value means that is not going to change, right? So in this case, that you have calculated this amount. Now this figure become the opening balance here, and here that this plus this plus this, it means the balance at the second plus 1000 plus the interest that we have calculated like this, and from here that we are going to drag it down. So what happened? So exactly you can see this amount. Yeah, so this amount you can see exactly the same amount 6715 that we have calculated, and this amount is exactly the same amount which we have calculated with the help of one formula. So now instead of going with the manual, so we can do with the one function which is available in Microsoft Excel. So that is known as future value calculation. So how the future value can be calculated? So let's start with is equal to sign future value. This is the return value, bracket open. Now here rate. So rate is the 10% for example, comma, next value is NPR. So NPR here is the total number of payment period in the investment. In this case there are 5 period. 5 period means of 5 years. So I click on this 5 years, comma, if we are making a payment we can put this in a minus, right? So payment which is going to be made, and that payment is not going to be changed over the life of the investment. So $1000 every year for 5 years. Then next is PV is the present value. So present value means whether you are going to invest any money or not. In this case that was 0, and here we will put 0 here in this case, comma. Then when that you're going to make investment, at the beginning of the period or at the end of the period. So in this case let's say I'm just going to take at the beginning of the period 1 and bracket close, enter. So you will find here 671561, exactly the same figure you can find it here, right? Okay, so now sometime we say we have enough money, let's say $5000 we have, or we can invest at the beginning of the period. If I enter $5000 here and press enter, so now in this case what happened? So 5000 that should be in minus because we are making payment. So in future we will receive $14,768.16. Same thing that we can calculate here. Let's say we have a $5000 here at the beginning of the period, enter, and here you will find same answer, right? Exactly the same answer you will find here. This is that we have done manually, and this is that we have done with the help of the formula which is available in Microsoft Excel.